What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the BaseTradeTV coverage for the WCS North America qualifiers for DreamHack Montreal Day 2. Or I suppose you can call it Day 2, you can call it the second qualifier, whatever you want to call it, but it is a fresh new open bracket for all of the Masters League players, and I believe obviously Grandmaster League players as well, but for on the North American server. And my understanding is that it is open to all the different regions. We may see one or two players in here that are from a different region, but it is closed off from Korea and China. Those are the two regions that I have been told were not allowed to participate in this particular qualifier. But welcome, my name is Fear Dragon, and I'm going to be bringing you guys your coverage for today. I did try and reach out to Tempo to see if he would co-cast with me today, but unfortunately I forgot. Like I typed out a message to him. I was like, "Hey Tempo, do you want to come cast with me today sometime?" I like typed out the message and I didn't hit send, and then I realized I didn't hit send like an hour ago. So I like sent him the message and it was like idle the entire day. I'm like, all right, well I guess I'm solo in this one. But still very excited for this. We have still a lot of really cool players. Definitely some of the names that I'm looking out for are Jon Snow, No Regret, State is still in the chat, like the chat channel, although I haven't really seen him on the bracket. We got Ruff, we got, I think it was Drunken Boy is playing today, EJK, Pokebunny, Schnitzel, Warren, a lot of really cool names. Cyark is signed up again, that Japanese representative. Man, how awesome would it be if a Japanese representative made it through on the North American server qualifiers? There's like no real, I guess, what is the word for it? There's no real big representatives for Japan in StarCraft. So Cyark is just representing, and I've got big hopes for him maybe at some point. So let's see. I'm trying to jump into the first match, which I've messaged some of the players. The two series that I was kind of keeping my eye on are, first of all, what was it? It was Schnitzel versus someone. Schnitzel versus Pokebunny. But I don't see Pokebunny around, and that is somewhat concerning to me, because Pokebunny's a really good player. Let me message him on Skype, actually. Hey, are you playing in what he says? Are you? Schnitzel is looking for you. Okay, yes, Pokebunny is logging in right now. Just message him. He is logging in right now. Awesome, so we're going to be doing Schnitzel versus Pokebunny for our first match. And this makes me really excited, because yesterday I think we had some one-sided matches to get started with. Today, this is a really good match. This is a legitimately good match to get started with. Schnitzel and Pokebunny have both been around for a long time. Pokebunny's telling me the bracket is rigged. Schnitzel. Schnitzel's a hard name to spell, as I try and get the overlay up to date. And this is going to be starting in the round of 128, just because there are currently 79 players that are checked in and signed up. Let's see. That's so funny. Schnitzel is saying, like, unfortunate I had to play him in round 1. I think he's the best player on our side of the bracket, and I would agree that Pokebunny has been doing insanely well as of late. He has been doing incredibly well. Pokebunny was just telling me these brackets are rigged. Okay, but as soon as these players are ready, they'll do their vetoes and everything else. Pokebunny again still just kind of logging in, and pretty soon we should be able to get started. But of course, I want to welcome everyone again to the BaseTradeTV coverage. The way that this works is there are a bunch of really different awesome stuff. Saw that, and going to Schnitzel versus All right, Penguin messaging me. Yeah, there were a couple of other matches that I was eyeing that were pretty cool. Juggernaut Jason versus Penguin was another one of the matches that I was eyeing. But you know what? This Terran versus Terran, Pokebunny, and Schnitzel. I haven't seen Schnitzel play for a while, so I really did want to check that out. But also just, I wanted to kind of give Pokebunny a little bit more attention, because this guy is seriously been working super hard. I think he still struggles with some of the more anxiety-based issues, where he doesn't perform quite as well under pressure. You know, whatever, sexual innuendos aside. But he doesn't perform quite as well under pressure. So And that's the other problem, is that he ends up putting a lot of pressure on himself. So I'm really interested to see how he's going to be doing. I haven't seen Pokebunny play in an intense WCS setting for a while. So both of these players, I just want to check out their form. I want to see how they're doing. Juggernaut Jason, I've gotten to cast quite a bit more recently. And also Penguin, I know, is a really, really solid player. A lot of people are like, why is Penguin playing in this? He's not North American. No, I'm pretty sure he's a North American citizen. So very interested to see where this is going to go. Where players are just doing their vetoes and everything. And I'm going to ask them one really quick thing. I'm going to ask them to make this on the beautiful WCS overlay. Can you guys be the most amazing friends in the world and pass me a lead so I can make on WCS mod? So I'm going to try and make this on the WCS mod, but just to talk a bit more about these two players, because again, you might not be as familiar with them. Schnitzel and Pokebunny. Schnitzel, you can see over here, representing Team EC, visualizing an American citizen, and has not exactly gotten the major results, and he is definitely going to be the underdog coming into this, absolutely. But he's still one of those players that I've seen around. He's been in Grandmaster for a very long time. He's shown potential, but hasn't really been able to capitalize it. And this is another one of those opportunities. You take out someone like Pokebunny, you take some good games, then hey, that's a really solid way to just set yourself up, not only for more attention, but to, I guess, boost your confidence level for the rest of the qualifier. Hey, you beat Pokebunny. He was definitely one of the stronger players on this side of the bracket. Pokebunny, of course, he's a really old school player. Okay, making out East. Got it. So I guess I need to really quickly set my server preferences and everything. Make sure that both the players are gonna have the optimal ping. Okay. So let me just double check really quickly. As you guys can see, Pokebunny, I'll show you guys if they've ever faced off against each other before. I don't believe they have. No, this is the first time they're facing against each other. So Frozen Temple, King Sejong Station. Okay. All right. So I'll go ahead and get this game made. Oh man. My XSplit's lagging a little bit as I try and get everything set up. Okay, sorry, I guess they were like still finishing up the vetoes. It's hard to pay attention, read the chat, and make the map, and also pay attention to everything else, but I'm trying to get stuff set up. Looks like Galactic Process is going to end up being the very first map, and Frozen Temple is going to be the second map. So all good. Of course, this is going to be a best of 3. All of the early rounds are best of 3. If you tuned in for yesterday's qualifier, or if you tuned in for the European qualifier, and you should be familiar with the fact that it's going to be best of 3 all the way up until round 4, which is the round of 16. The round of 16 is where it becomes a best of 5. All right, so moving players around. Player is ready, and as soon as they are ready, we will get this game underway. GLHF is called. It's going to be a TvT. They picked totally different colors, so you colorblind folks, I checked it for you. I checked it because I remember this time. It's a hard thing to remember, but I remembered, so it's already off to a good start. Haven't drastically messed up anything. I don't have any map intro to play, so this is going to go pretty smoothly, and we're going to be hopping into game number 1 for our first Terran versus Terran. Reminder that the players that qualify, the top 8 that qualify today, are not necessarily going to get flown out to DreamHack Montreal. It's not an instant qualification. You then have to play on the finals day on Saturday, so there's still a little bit more to it, but still going to be very, very important for these players to show their best in this first round as we start up here in the top right-hand corner of the map. Top of the blue Terran player, give it up for Schnitzel, representing Team EC Visualize. Most recently, at least according to Aligulek. That may be a bit out of date, since I don't know what FP toss is. I think I do know what FP toss is. Spawning down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, we have the purple Terran player representing Team Ascension. Give it up for Pokebunny. So we got a TvT. It's Galactic Process, the map that I like to usually talk about these rocks and this kind of third expansion. I love talking about this third expansion, but the weird thing about this matchup is that so often you're loading up a majority or a large portion of your units into those medevacs, or at least the siege tanks, and you end up kind of bypassing these cliffs and these rocks. So really, I feel like the fact that this third expansion is behind these rocks doesn't play as much of an impact as it does in many of the other matchups, at least from the games that I've seen on it so far. Now, it still can play an impact. Oftentimes, a player will have enough medevacs to load up their siege tanks, but they don't really want to load up all their marines in the medevacs, or they don't quite have enough. So they end up having to do slower elevator plays up to try and put pressure on the third. But if you can get over into this location right over here, this is just kind of one of those old school Terran versus Terran mentalities where you say, I siege up on the low ground and I siege up your production. It's very important where you place your production. Right now, of course, these players are going to be placing their barracks over at their front, but if they start placing their factory and their starport all along this area, siege tanks down on the low ground can start sieging that up, and that can cause a lot of problems later on. You lose tech labs, reactors, but for now we are going to be taking a look at the Reaper opening them, and that Reaper took like the most roundabout path. I guess it couldn't go over the supply depot, so it ended up over here and walked all the way around. It's a hard-working Reaper right there. But it is also a Reaper opening from Pokebunny. Pokebunny being a little bit more active with his Reaper, though, sending it around the map, using SCV to scout around for potential. I don't know if he's checking for his opponent's Reaper moving around, or if he's just looking around for potential weird proxies or SCVs or anything else that could be coming out. But I do want to note behind this, Pokebunny is trying to go for all the scouting information because he's going for a very fast third. Look at this third coming out before the factory goes up. And in comparison, of course, we do have factory going up for Schnitzel. Schnitzel is going to be the one that has to get a bit more damage done, just because that 3cc is a pretty magical number. But Reaper's coming up to the high ground, and there's only 2 Marines and 1 Reaper. That 1 Reaper is going to be very valuable, as Schnitzel wants to make sure that it's soaking up as many hits as possible. But already getting a pretty decent trade over here. Pokebunny losing some health, but is going to find his way around those units and going to come in for the high ground. He may be able to throw some grenades down. He's going to be able to immediately, potentially going to pick off on one of the Marines. Reaper does not want to get too far away from his Marine backup. He wants to try and just focus fire down on that weakened Reaper that Pokebunny has. Pokebunny gonna have to be on an all-out retreat. Ends up taking 1 more hit, and the Reaper is gonna take a little bit longer to regenerate the health, so should be okay for now. And even has the Widow Mine. I love the position of this Widow Mine, where this is gonna be our most likely location where the Reapers will try and jump back up. Maybe Pokebunny is still going out. No, Pokebunny is out for blood. He says, forget scouting. I want to get kills right now. This is a game of war, not a game of, I don't even know. What's a game that involves information gathering? I guess the CSI, I don't even know. But here we go. Reaper's continuing to put on the pressure. And I want to note something really important is that Pokebunny is constantly poking at the front, so he sees the Marines that are coming out, he sees how many there are, and now he's even going to lose the Reaper, but he gets a scout out on the starport that has a tech lab, an empty tech lab next to it. So he knows that's going to be swapped on over there. He sees that another tech lab is building on a factory. He knows that he has a far, far faster third expansion or third orbital command taken. So he's going to know, may have to play a little bit more on the defensive, may have to be a bit more cautious, or at least about potential aggression, since he is going to have a later starport that popped out, a later factory that popped out. His units are just going to be a little bit slower, but once his economy starts kicking in from those mules on that third command center, once his SCV count starts building up, then Pokebunny is going to be able to really take advantage of it. Third command center, he started up behind all this for Schnitzel, but he's also going for this drop play. Marines getting focus fire down. The Widow Mine is over there, but it seems like Pokebunny is probably aware of it. He's definitely playing very, very cautiously around it. Only loses 2 workers. 3 workers, as one of them is building a supply depot. The SCVs on the gas geyser are probably going to have to file for some public healthcare complaints, as they do take a bit of damage, but they still survive. You know what? 1 health point is as good as full health points in terms of mining. If only real world politics and life worked that way. If only it didn't matter if your kidneys were failing, your lungs are failing, and everything else, but gosh darn it, you can still do your job because you have 1 hit point left. Banshee did come out, as we saw that tech lab earlier on from Schnitzel. In fact, even making a second Banshee. Is going to have Cloak finishing up as well, so he should be able to get a little bit of damage done over here just because Pokebunny does not have any missile turrets, but he does have an engineering bay, and he does have 3 command centers, so at least one of them is likely to have a scan available, but Well, there's gonna only be a scan available in about 9 or so seconds, so this Banshee should be able to cloak and get at least 4 or 5 kills before it ends up getting picked off. He's not retreating on with it, but he's already up to 8 and 11 kills. There's another drop going on in the main base as well. Siege Tank able to clean up most of the Marines. The Banshee does get scanned and cleaned up, but 14 workers killed so far, and a single Marine forcing the Siege Tank to unsiege. Medevac, it does get taken out by the missile turret, but 14 workers killed, putting Schnitzel in a significant worker lead. And he did have a 3rd command center that was finishing up behind all that. It's turning into an orbital command right now, so yeah, you could say Pokebunny had the advantage of those earlier mules, but at this point, Schnitzel is going to have a much better economy. But I suppose it's also worth noting that yeah, Schnitzel did lose the medevac, lost a bunch of the Marines, and Pokebunny maybe now has an opportunity to push across the map and get some counter damage done. The question is, does he really have enough to warrant being able to do a massive amount of counter damage? I feel like the positioning is going to be more important than anything else because he doesn't have any medevacs. He can't easily maneuver around these siege tanks, and he's going to be up against the faster reinforcements for Schnitzel. So even though he has, 4 siege tanks out, one of these siege tanks is way out on the other side of the map. He's not completely grouped up with his entire army. In fact, he only has 2 siege tanks with his army right now. Viking is going to be very important as well, just trying to pick away at Schnitzel's siege tank. But here we go. I like the kind of I liked the kind of positioning that Pokebunny was going for, but the rocks are going to cause so many problems for him because that means he can't really easily maneuver in over here with no So I was gonna say, you know, the rocks are over here, and this is a change that just happened. Very recently, like insanely recently. And this is an enormous problem because guess what? Pokebunny only just now got this medevac, so he can only now elevator past that rock. And oh god, Schnitzel knows. That is so unfortunate. It's the kind of out of game knowledge that you know your opponent just asked about when did the map change. This is what changed, so he sends 2 Marines over there. But he's gonna see that, hey, my opponent's army's moving at the front, but he's already sieged up. And yes, he's kind of not getting the best focus fire on these siege tanks. Pokebunny's taking a better engagement over here than I thought he would, but I still think that Schnitzel's not gonna have any problems holding in over here. Couple more Marines are coming in. Pokebunny still has an opportunity to get some damage done. SCVs are actually being pulled off the line right now and getting a lot of tanking damage done, but so many of them are going down. Schnitzel still has 57 workers of 33, even after losing 12 workers, and Pokebunny's starting to take out these medevacs. Without the medevacs, suddenly Schnitzel cannot remaneuver these siege tanks around. That puts him at a huge disadvantage. The problem is Pokebunny doesn't have any Marines left. A couple more are popping in, but he just is going to have such a difficult time pushing further in without a large number of Marines that can absorb the siege tank fire and give his siege tanks an opportunity to move forward. He's getting a couple of good kills here and there. And picking off one of the siege tanks that Schnitzel moves too far forward. That's definitely nice. Picking up his Marines as they start taking too much damage. And he is trying to reproduce that SCV count behind this. Whereas you take a look and Schnitzel, I mean, he's producing workers every so often, but only producing 2 at a time. Really, I guess he's at that kind of money number of SCVs. He's trying to invest everything into his army supply at this point. They are fairly even on army supply. Pokebunny looking for an opportunity to move on in with some of the reinforcements. Does come in from the 3rd expansion. He's going to be able to kill off a couple of workers as Schnitzel is a bit busy dealing with the other force that's being pushed in over here. He does clean up the south side, but his Marines were idle, and during that time, Pokebunny was able to micro these 2 Marines, able to kill off 9 additional workers, evening things up just a little bit more. Pokebunny also has a slightly faster 2-2 upgrade coming in. Not insanely faster. Of course, Schnitzel will be able to play catch up very, very quickly as it's only about 15-20 seconds ahead. But that may just be enough if Schnitzel engages at the wrong time. Those small little army advantages, those small little timing advantages can definitely help out quite a bit if things all go according to plan. Pokebunny does have his 3rd expansion up and running, though it's not entirely nearly as saturated as Schnitzel's, who's sitting at oversaturation right now. But, I mean, he was oversaturated in all of his bases and looking to take a 4th expansion because of that. At the same time, though, I like the double medevac drop coming across the map. He knows that Pokebunny has been so actively pushing across the map that he's got absolutely nothing back at home. The missile turrets are going up right now, and oh man, this sensor tower would have been so much more useful if it had come up just a little bit earlier, but now it's a bit too late to really have much of a reaction. He ends up having to pull back his entire army. Losing 3 workers, that's not too bad, but he does not want to lose his command center. Stim goes down, the command center is getting very low. Oh my god, it's gonna go down. 2-2 does finish up, and I mean, Pokebunny is pretty much forced into an all-in position at this point. Losing that 3rd orbital command this late into the game, it's already being down so far in the army supply. How in the world does Pokebunny make a comeback, even still having to deal with this drop that's coming into the main base, killing off 15 more workers? And behind this, we again have a 4th expansion finishing up over here for Schnitzel. GG gets called. Schnitzel gonna walk away with game number 1. Well, a little bit unfortunate there, as I will say. Pokebunny went for a push-in that very much was dependent on specific timing and a lot of those kinds of things, but it just got delayed, not even by a substantial amount, but just that little bit that really did make a world of difference. I think that 15-20 seconds where he went up to the high ground on that very far right-hand side of the map. Let's see, Frozen Temple, the next map. He went up to the high ground on the right-hand side of that map, and unfortunately what ended up happening was that there were the rocks there, and he didn't have time to knock down the rocks and try and come in from that angle. And because of that, he lost 15-20 seconds. That was another round of production for Schnitzel, and that could have made or break the difference between Pokebunny getting in there, doing actual economic damage, and not doing anything at all, kind of like what we saw. Correct map, right? Alright, so players getting ready as I'll update the overlay really quickly. We got Schnitzel leading up 1-0, and again, I really did feel like this was going to favor Schnitzel or Pokebunny a little bit. Alright, players are both ready. We're hopping into it. Frozen Temple is going to be the next map. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you there. All right, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, in game number 2, and with a slightly unexpected result, we have this player up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, the blue Terran player, who he himself was telling me right before the match started, man, I can't believe I got to face this strong of a player this early on. That's really unfortunate, but looks like things are going his way so far. Can he make it a 2-0? Give it up for Schnitzel, possibly representing Team EC Visualize, according to Aligulac. And his opponent spawned down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. We have the red Terran player from Team Ascension Pro, still a player I would give a little bit of favoritism to in this next coming game. Give it up for Pokebunny. Going for a pretty fast 2-gas opening. Getting that second gas geyser well before the barracks finishes up, and comparatively you can see Schnitzel not really doing the same thing. Has that 1 gas geyser for the early Reaper, but likely just wants to go straight into the command center, and it seems like, yeah, Pokebunny wants to go straight into the factory. So Pokebunny gonna be sort of doing a role reversal over here, when the last game he went for the super fast 3cc build. He had the economy, he had what he needed to, I suppose, get a nice economic lead at the sacrifice of delaying some of his tech. But now this game, he's going the total opposite direction. He's going for super fast tech, and Schnitzel is going to be a little bit further ahead in that economy, but slightly further behind in terms of his tech. Now, Schnitzel, of course, is the one that's doing something more similar to what he did last game. So not many changes on his front, but there is still a Reaper opening coming out from Pokebunny. Moving around with that initial Reaper. Doesn't look like he's going for the same level of scouting around the map for proxies as he did in that last game. Although he is kind of checking around, maybe, I guess, looking for his opponent's Reaper. I like the fact that he's very active about that. He is going to find a nice little window where he can make his way over to the high ground, but he might end up losing the Reaper. Really nice follow-up over here from Schnitzel. He gets the kill, and Pokebunny is going to be totally in the dark. Now, Pokebunny saw the Marine. Pokebunny did see that Marine, and that in and of itself is a bit of a reveal. It looks very similar to the build that Schnitzel went for last time. You can probably assume, first of all, there's not going to be a second Reaper following this up, but also likely there's not going to be a Hellion or something along those lines following up. So Pokebunny knows there's most likely going to be a command center behind this barracks opening or the Reaper opening. And look at this, Schnitzel completely shutting down Pokebunny. Once again, focus firing down the Hellion specifically, because he knows the Reaper, if it gets out of there, hey, it'll have a health that it can regenerate. The Hellion, that damage, not entirely permanent, but more permanent. Big shout out, by the way, to WhoFit1. Thank you so much for the 22-month resub. Pokebunny trying to use the grenades to hit any units that may be a little bit too high, but scan comes down from Schnitzel. He sees that the starport, the factory are there. He probably knows that there's going to be a medevac moving its way across the map. And he also saw that there were the Hellions produced, but there's no Widowmine that I maybe would have been expecting had I seen this sort of setup. Instead, we are going to just be seeing a Hellion drop into the main base with double Reapers that can also jump their way up to the high ground, but Schnitzel was already preparing for this because he saw you went for the very fast starport. You're looking to get up some form of drop harassment or at least a liberator or something in the air. So I'm gonna keep my units inside my main base. I don't need to land my orbital command on the low ground just yet. I know you took a later natural expansion, and he's gonna be very much prepared for this. Reapers have to dart down to the low ground. Imagine if this push in had a couple more Hellions. This would have maybe been a lot more effective, but he just does not have the firepower I think he really wants in this situation. Because if there were 2 or 3 more Hellions, guess what? These Marines would have been absolutely roasted, but Pokebunny has to back up and say, I am at a 7 worker disadvantage. I just kind of have to play from that. There's no, you know, turning things around or trying to overcommit over here. You can try and poke a little bit more, but he needs to make sure he doesn't overcommit. Schnitzel has a pretty scary looking army right now. And these Reaper grenades also maybe working a bit against Pokebunny rather than for him in that situation. But behind the Schnitzel is starting to get up his, Cyclone, not Siege Tank. I like that decision just because he knows that there's this threat of the medevac harassment that he's dealing with right now while he establishes this natural. Cyclone going to be a really great way to get the immediate lock on if this medevac ever overcommits. And also it's going to be useful for the Banshee that's now coming out. Vikings have already been made, and look at the Schnitzel is just shutting down Pokebunny on every single front. Banshee immediately takes 2 shots. Is going to try and look for another way to move around. There is Banshee's cloak research, but look at this. Schnitzel already has a missile turret and is saving up energy for scans. He has multiple scans saved up, and he should have no problems whatsoever with that Banshee. It should maybe be able to get 2 kills or 3 kills, maybe, and then it should just end up falling. Siege Tank is in the mix over here for Pokebunny, and using the Vikings, very interestingly enough, over on the medevac for the Siege Tank, and this is really going to shut down the capabilities right now for Pokebunny. He's going to guarantee lose this Siege Tank, I want to say, but he's taking a lot of damage in the meanwhile. Loses 2 more workers. Banshee on the south side is going to be coming back into the natural expansion, so a lot of action coming in, but Pokebunny still, I don't know if he's done the damage he really wants to just yet. Yes, he's somehow managed to even up that worker count, maybe by just taxing Schnitzel's APM, forcing him to lose cycles where he's maybe making some of those workers while he makes some himself. But the important thing is that he's also losing his army in exchange for, you can see that army supply, well, Pokebunny's not too far behind, all things considered. So maybe I'm overreading into it. The Banshee going down without really getting much damage done is definitely less than ideal, but Schnitzel is getting up his 3rd orbital command and just pumping out some of those barracks, and I would say that is the big thing that Schnitzel is trying to play a little bit of catch up in. Is Pokebunny already has most of his barracks done. He has Stim almost finished up. He has his reactor there. But Pokebunny is going to be able to try and establish this 3rd command center pretty soon as well. So maybe this is not quite as a game that's going as in favor for Schnitzel as I initially thought. Because if you just look at the numbers, Schnitzel, by not really making so many of the workers during all of that pressure, he didn't lose that many workers. He lost what? 2 workers across the entire harassment of all those Banshees and all the Hellions and everything, but Pokebunny was still able to catch up, and especially with a 3rd orbital command finishing up, imagine if he had had continuous SCV production. Now, I don't know if he would have been able to defend quite as easily if he did, because those would have been resources invested there rather than army, but if he did, he would have enough to fully saturate his 3rd and potentially a good enough economy to defend it at this point. But at this stage, he does have to just sort of deal with whatever he's got, because Pokebunny's moved across the map and he's not going to be waiting around for Schnitzel to land that 3rd orbital command. Nice sieging up over here for Schnitzel. Already gets the first set of volleys off and is going to get a couple of really good volleys off on top of Pokebunny's sea shanks. Although his sea shanks are pretty clumped up right now. He's taking multiple shots from those sea shanks. GG gets called though. Schnitzel with a bit of an upset takes game number 2, taking the 2-0 over Pokebunny. Really, really cool for Schnitzel, as again, he was not necessarily feeling the most confident. He didn't say outright like, oh, I feel like I'm gonna lose this, but he felt like of his side of the bracket, Pokebunny was likely the most fearsome competitor that he would have to worry about. And I actually don't know if I would agree with that, because Puck is potentially the next opponent, and as much as I love Pokebunny, Puck is absolutely, hands down, one of the best players in North America, without a shadow of a doubt. But alright, we're going to be hopping to a short little break since we did just finish up our second game. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a little bit, so please don't go anywhere. We'll see you guys soon.